Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. It is officially the Packers off-season. I know we've been talking a lot of potential coaching changes. Will Matt LaFleur be back? Is Brian Gutekunst on the hot seat? We've been also talking about, will Jeff Hafley take a head coaching job? Should we shake up the offensive line coach room? All of that stuff. We got to kind of put it on the back burner as that smoke needs to settle, right? Obviously, Matt LaFleur is meeting with the team this week to see if they can work out a deal. We'll see if that happens. And the second that news breaks, we'll bring it to you. But on tap today, we're going to dive into some of the roster moves, some of the roster decisions that we have to make, right? And really the first thing that you do, we talk about the futures contracts. That happened yesterday. We broke all that down. I'll try to attach a video to this stream. If not, you can just comb back through our archive just a touch. I've got you guys a separate folder created now. That's the 2026 Packers offseason. So all the videos will be in there on YouTube as well. And of course, you can find all of the stuff that we're covering here over at patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Any of the articles you see me show on the screen, all that stuff you can find over there. So we're going to dive into the next list, or the next thing on the list, I guess you could say, which is going to be re-signing free agents. All right. So we've got a flurry of a group of Packer players that are set to hit free agency. We're going to talk about their market value. That's what we're going to dive into in today's segment, and probably a little bit later today. I'm sure we'll get into at least a couple of these players and kind of just talk about it, man. Everybody get in here. Let's hash it out. See, all right, who do we want back at what price? You guys know I say all the time, I want all of these players back at the right price. You know, there's a couple that I don't want back, but we'll save that for another day. But you know what I mean? Like, you know, you got people like Rasheed Walker, Romeo Doubs, these guys that it's like, okay, they're not bad football players, but what's their market value? And are we willing to overpay for them, right? You know, that's going to come down to that's what the question comes down to. So we're going to hit all that this morning. Before we do, if you would, do that YouTube stuff for me. Hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon. If you're new here, welcome to PTA. Listen, we're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you, talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for that type of content, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss any future live streams. And thank you for making us a part of your morning. We really, really appreciate it. I know the chat is already on fire. We got Dennis Shook in the house. We had Chris N in here. I think Chris N was camping out like it was a midnight release or something. My man, appreciate you. Rob Westerman hanging out. Ray in the house. Cal in here as well. Thank y'all so much for jumping in. Let's waste no time. Let's get into it. Again, you can find this over in our Patreon group. It's the best way to support what we do at PTA. If you want to be a part of our community, jump in there. If not, listen, hey, the video is free here on YouTube. You can listen to it in podcast form at Packernet Podcasts for free as well. But again, if you want to contribute and help the show out and get some extra content, that's where you can find articles like this. All right, so let's jump into it. Let's get into the details. Current Packers set to be free agents. Who should we re-sign? So let's start off with the first segment and talk about who are on the list in terms of players that need to be re-signed that are set to hit free agency. Now, you guys know the deal here. There are three different types of free agents, right? You've got unrestricted free agents that are set to hit the market, no restrictions whatsoever, right? You've got restricted free agents, and then you've got exclusive rights free agents. Now, I view those last two as, if you want those players, you can get them back. And you can pretty much get them back for, I feel like, a little less than market. Most of the time, teams will not outbid you for players, when it comes to a restricted free agency. And obviously, any of these players you lose in free agency, they'll kind of tally up the total at the end. Who did you bring on? Who did you lose? And you get comp picks for those, right? But essentially, that's how this is going to lay out. So let's talk about the list. At the top of the list. Now, notice here, guys, I've got it sorted here by type of free agents. Then we're going to get into previous average annual value, what they've already made in the league on an average annual basis, and then we'll sort it by market value, okay? So we'll kind of get everything all organized. You'll have a complete understanding of who's set to hit free agency and what their value is. So at the top of the list, Rasheed Walker, unrestricted free agent. Then you got Kingsley Egbare, and these are in no particular order. They're just sorted by type of free agency, okay? Rasheed Walker, Kingsley Egbare, Romeo Doubs, Zane Anderson, Nick Nyman, Sean Ryan, Malik Willis, John Fitzpatrick, and Quay Walker. Okay, now keep in mind, when we talk market value, this is according to Spot Track. Over the Cap may have a different market value. We've seen some of these guys get far more than the market value, right? It just depends on how, it's just like any other market. If there's a scarcity in the market and there's not a whole lot of assets there, the value is going to go up, right? That's the supply and demand, just like anything else in business. Some of these, the market value may seem kind of high, like Rasheed Walker. He may get less than that $20 million, right? But again, those are your unrestricted free agents. Now, moving along, restricted free agency: Brenton Cox Jr., Chris Brooks, Darian Kennard, Emmanuel Wilson, Bo Melton. Those are your restricted free agents on the Packers roster as it sits right now. Exclusive rights free agents: Alex Hell, kicker; Kamal Haddon, cornerback; Donovan Jennings, guard; Jonathan Ford, big defensive tackle. So those are your exclusive rights free agents. Again, the way I look at this, unrestricted free agents, you're going to have to pay market value for, okay? Because the rest of the league, they have the ability to go after them as well. So before they hit free agency, if you're serious about keeping an unrestricted free agent, if it's a guy like, man, we've got to have them, you're going to need to pay market value for them. They're not going to take less because they are set to hit the market. They're healthy. They're good to go. I'm assuming most of these guys are healthy, and it looks like they are. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk about previous average annual value sorted like that. So we mentioned Quay Walker, right, linebacker on that unrestricted free agent list. He is at the top of the list. So since he's been in Green Bay, his previous average annual value is $3.4 million. Then it's John Fitzpatrick, 1.5, Malik Willis, 1.2. I laugh every time. It's like, man, what value we had in Malik Willis as a backup quarterback, 1.2 million. Sean Ryan, 1.2 million. Zane Anderson, 1.1. Nick Nyman, 1.1. Romeo Doubs, 1 million flat. Now he got an escalator because he played so many stats and had production. I think that jumped to 3 million against the cap last year. Again, this is previous average annual value from the original contract before the escalators, if I remember correctly. Okay. Moving along, Emmanuel Wilson, 1 million flat. Bo Melton, 1 million flat. Jonathan Ford, 1 million. Darian Kennard, Kingsley Egbare, Rasheed Walker. Listen, I know a lot of people don't like Rasheed Walker. They don't think he's a good player. I understand the frustration. He made some boneheaded decisions this year. I don't think Rasheed Walker is a bad football player. And the fact that we had him playing left tackle at $900,000 average annual value is absolutely wild. You've got to tip your cap to Goody for pulling that off. Now, did he hold us back at times? Possibly, right? But the level of player he was, comparatively speaking, to the $900,000 salary cap, you kidding me? That is, and he probably hit an escalator too, so the cap is a little higher. But you guys get the gist there. That was a great value pick in the 7th round for sure. Chris Brooks, Brenton Cox Jr., on and so forth, right? So that is the previous average annual value. Let's talk market value. This is the most important aspect of this entire list, okay? Again, we talked about the type of free agent they are. We talked about their previous average annual value. When you see a difference, a huge difference from this column here to this column here, that tells you got great value in the pick, okay? Now, you look at Quay at 3.4 million is his previous average annual value, and his market value is showing 9.6 average annual value. That would suggest that was good value, right? Now, people probably disagree because you spent a first-round pick on a guy that they feel like, didn't play that well at times, right? I can understand that sentiment as well. The 9.6, that's probably what he's going to get on the market, to be honest with you. I mean, this guy, he's a physical freak. I would not pay that much money average annual value. Now, we talk in cap hit terms here most of the time because, again, that 9.6 is the total contract divided by the number of years. Guaranteed money control will really determine how much you're on the hook for, meaning you could sign him to a 3-year deal at $9.6 million per. The first year he may be on the cap for $5 million. The next year it may jump to $11 million. And then the third year, it may jump to $15 million or whatever the numbers shake out to. But you can get out of that second and third year if you guarantee just a smaller portion of the money. That's why we talk about cash over cap on the show. If you give more average annual value, typically you can have a lesser percentage of guaranteed money. But these players, these agents, they want the guaranteed money. They're okay with it being a 2-year deal if you get more guaranteed money, because they can hit the market again and get another bite at the apple in Quay Walker's case at the age of 28, right? So those things matter. Please don't take this the wrong way, like this stuff does not matter in that regard, okay? Now, let's talk market value. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players that have a market value attached, okay, to their free agency here. All right. Let's go high to low. Rasheed Walker, according to Spot Track, has the highest market value. And again, this isn't set in stone. This is Spot Track's evaluation. We're going to talk about Rasheed Walker and Romeo Doubs individually here in a second, and you'll see how they come up with that number. People see that number and they say, that's BS. There ain't no way he's worth that. When you look at the comps, you go, okay, if a player needs a left tackle, here's the players that are comp to him most recently that signed a contract. The numbers shake out. It is what it is, right? Again, I don't necessarily agree with those market value numbers, but it's just like when you're selling a house or buying a house, right? Well, when you're selling a house, we all probably know someone, hell, maybe we've been guilty of it, right? You go to sell a house, you think it's worth this much, but the reality is the house isn't worth what you think it's worth. The house is worth what someone else is willing to pay for it. That's the true value of anything. So whether we think Rasheed Walker is worth $20.3 million or not, again, we'll deep dive it in a second. Whether we think that's the case or not, if someone's willing to pay him $20.3 million on the open market, that's his true value, right? Is it money well spent? Who knows? That's not the question. The question is, what's his market value? What's someone willing to pay him, right? So $20.3 million is the number on Rasheed Walker. Romeo Doubs, $12 million. I ain't gonna lie, boys. We're gonna talk about it here in a second. I seen that $12 million and I went, yeah, I think I'd pay Rome $12 million. And listen, time out, pause. I'm gonna go ahead and warn you guys. When we talk salary cap, this has happened. I've done this podcast for 4 years. I think the YouTube channel's been going for about 3, something like that. When we started doing this podcast, I found out real quick there's a portion of the fan base and in the NFL fan base in general that I refer to as the cap gurus. They're going to come out of the woodworks and try to pick everything apart. We don't have so they're going to say right now, what are you talking about, Clayton? How can we re-sign these players? We're $4.7 million over the cap right now. Now you hear that and you go, damn, are we dead last in cap? No, we're about middle of the pack. Okay. Now, why do I point out the cap gurus, what I call the doom and gloomers? They're going to paint a picture that there's no way, no how you can make any of this happen. It happened when they gave Aaron Rodgers his contract. It happens every year. This time, they'll talk and talk and talk, and they'll paint this doom and gloom picture of the Packers don't have any money. And then all of a sudden, the Packers restructure a few contracts, free up a little cap space here. That's going to be a later episode this week where we're going to talk about potential cuts and restructures where we can free up money. Let me give you just a very blanket statement here, okay? This doesn't include post-June 1 cuts and all the detail-itis that we can get into. We're showing that we're $4.7 million over the cap right now. The reality is you have about $70 million you could free up in cap space. Now, will the Packers do that? Absolutely not. That's kind of a max restructured number. You can go to over the cap. They may have a different number than me. I do things probably a little bit different than everybody does. Every year I come up with that number, and then I split it in half and say, realistically, if we wanted to go kind of all in, you could free up half of that number and it not put you in a horrible spot. So $74.6 million is what I came up with. Split it in half. Let's go even lower than that, less than half of that number. $30 million is what you could free up. Just like that. Very, very easy. Now, if you free up $30 million, you take off the $5 million you're over the cap, okay? So that cuts it down to $25 million. And then you take that $25 million and set aside about $7 million operating funds, right? So you're probably about $18 million. A good, comfortable number I'm coming up with, $20 million. You could free up enough and have the operating money for next year. This includes already the draft class already included in the salary cap next year as well. The cap may go up a touch. We'll see. I think they got a pretty good grab on where it's going to be. And that'll come out obviously after owner meetings and things like that. We'll give you all that breaking coverage as we move through the offseason too. But the point is, I'm looking at about $20 million. So you can spend about $20 million on either these free agents here or in free agency. And who knows, maybe they go really aggressive and it's closer to 50 million that they free up, right? Of the 74 we talk about, because we talked about some major cuts that could happen. Elgton Jenkins, 24.8 million against the cap. If you just cut Elgton Jenkins, you free up $20 million. Now, should you restructure? Should you cut? I don't know. Will you be willing to restructure? Seeing that he held out of training camp, probably not, right? But again, just kind of laying that out. That's how I'm telling you, mark my words, the cap doom and gloomers, they're watching, they're listening, they're lying in the weeds right now. They're going to come screaming to the front, going, we ain't got no money. Please don't listen to it. Don't buy into it. I did for 1 year after doing the pod, and I'm like, this happens every freaking year. Every year. And I was just doing the pod for 1 year when I finally got fed up. Like, how many years am I going to buy into this cap doom and gloom, right? Because it was always, oh, we ain't got the money. We ain't got the money. And then you see teams go from 60 million over the cap to being 20 under the cap like that, right? It's just crazy. So anyway, that's the cash over cap era we're in until the CBA and the owners get together and change the way that they can basically convert base salary into signing bonus and tack on voidable years and maneuver money on down the road. This is always going to be a thing, right? I don't personally like it. I wish we could have it more cut and dry. Here's how much money you spent. Here's how much money you got. But it's the era we're in, right? It is what it is. So with that being said, next on the list, Malik Willis, 10.5. This is an example of a player I honestly think that is extremely low. Again, when we get into his evaluation on down the road here, because what I'm going to do is this article that we put together here on Patreon, I'm just going to continue to add to it. Okay. So tomorrow you'll get 2 or 3 of these players like a Malik Willis that'll have market value attached to them, or, what I think will be true market value and kind of the assessment and everything. So they've got him at 10.5. Dan Orlovsky said he deserves 40 million. Other people are saying 30. I don't know where that's going to fall, guys. I feel comfortable saying it's not going to be 10 million though. I think he'll probably crack at least 20 million, just what he's put on tape, unless it's a big if here, right? If the shoulder, not necessarily check out, if that scares away some teams, the hammy as well, right? Matt LaFleur said that in the Chicago game, he was asked in the presser, did you think about with some of your struggles in offense, put Malik Willis in and have a running package or two? And he just blatantly said that wasn't an option for us because of his hamstring. Even if we had put him in the game, we would not have been able to do that because his hamstring was in such bad shape. So he's got the hammy and the shoulder, the throwing shoulder. That's something that might drive his value down a little bit. I don't know. But if he was fully healthy, I think that 10.5 is way, way too low. That makes sense. So, all right, next on the list, Quay Walker, 9.6 million is the market value. Sean Ryan, 6.5 million, boys. Sean Ryan made himself a little money this year, right? Playing center, playing guard. I thought he played decent. I don't think he was horrible this year. What else can you ask for in a backup center? But Spot Track agrees that Sean Ryan's value has went up from 1.2 million to 6.5 million. Okay. And then edge defender Kingsley Enagbare, 5.9. I feel like that might be a little low. If you can get Enagbare back for 5.9, I'm not saying I'm on board yet, but I can understand it. If we didn't have so many other edge defenders in that room that we want to see get on the field and see what we actually have there, your Baron Sorrells, your Colin Olivers, Britton Cox Jr. has always played pretty good, right? It's just a crowded room behind LVN, Micah Parsons, and Rashan Gary. Now his future's up in the air, right? You could move on from Rashan Gary and free up $11 million. So he may not be a Packer next year. That could be a restructure as well, right? As Coach Glenn says here in the chat, Ryan was solid. I agree, Coach. I thought he played pretty good, man. Now, again, you never overpay for good. You're willing to overpay for great. You never overpay for good, right? Rasheed Walker, overall the body of work, I would say he was above average, right? Romeo Doubs, we're going to talk about him here in just a second. Romeo Doubs, I think he played great. I think I'm to that point. I want to know what you guys think. Now, will he be re-signed? Has very little to do with how he played, to be honest with you, because the way that our roster is modeled and the structure of everything. We're going to dive into Rasheed Walker and Romeo Doubs now, okay? We're going to get into the details of their contract situation and what are they actually worth and talk about all the stats. So if you guys are watching this video back later, let me know in the comments, how do you feel about the current list of players that are set to hit free agency? Which of these guys would you like to throw some money at? Maybe there's some of these that you look at these market value and say, there's no way, no how that they're worth that much money. Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and click that bell icon so you're notified when we go live. All right, let's move along now. The first player on the list is Rasheed Walker. Let's all put our heads together here. And again, any super chats that come in, I should have said this top of the hour. I apologize. Any super chats that come in, I promise I'll read them. Okay. I promise I will. It'll be after the segment. Okay. So if you guys get those in, let me know. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat as well. You guys know it's hard when you're going solo to read the chat. Make sure it's appropriate. Put it up. We got some knuckleheads in here. I wouldn't have it any other way, but got to make sure that we can put it up. And sometimes it's hard to do that without having dead air. So Rasheed Walker, his overall offensive grade on the year was 62.4. Okay. 62.4. He ended up being the 59th highest graded tackle in the National Football League. Now, we know left tackle is a tier 1 position of importance. This is a position you're willing to overpay. You're willing to overpay for in general, but you need a great football player at this position. Okay. Will we classify someone finishing 59th in his craft? Now, keep in mind, that includes left tackle, right tackle. It's just broken down by tackles and not left tackle. So Rasheed Walker basically finished, write this time down, I apologize. He finished 59th according to PFF at his position. That would suggest, obviously there's 32 teams. There's 2 starting tackles on each team, 64 teams. That would suggest he is a starting caliber tackle, right? But again, it's such an important position. You got to make sure you've got that shirt up. Now, in terms of pass block grade, 43 out of 87 tackles. So that would suggest he's closer to a number 1 tackle on a team, right? However, the run blocking grade, what did we struggle with this year, guys? We finished 22nd or 23rd in yards per carry in the running game. This is one of the reasons why. Run blocking grade 52.6, that was 75th. So again, when you take those two together and you kind of come up with an overall ranking, it's like the 59th best tackle. Now, I want to ask everybody in the chat, would you be willing to pay $20 million average annual value for a player? There's 58 other players at his position that are better than him, according to PFF, for what it's worth. Would you be willing to do that? I would not. All right. Again, would I like to have Rasheed Walker back? Absolutely. The number I'm coming up with is like 10 million. If you can get him at $10 million average annual value, the first year cap hit would probably be about 7 million, depending on how you want to structure it. 7 million. Then it would probably, blimp to, let's say, 9 or 10 million, and then it would go up to 12 and then 14, right? Something like that. If Rasheed Walker's market value truly is $20 million, see you, bub. Go get your money. That's the way I see it. So now, will the Packers make him an offer? Here's the big problem I have with this. The penalties are what got me, right? I mean, just boneheaded penalties. When we would find ourselves in situations where it's like, all right, got to have it play here. Let's go offense. Let's go put a drive together. Damn, there's a flag. Who is it? It's Rasheed Walker. That stuff's frustrating, guys. That's the type of stuff that, and you got to be careful what you wish for here, because it's a penalty. Penalties are typically a reflection of a young, inexperienced team, which we have the youngest team in the league. Rasheed Walker, people will say, well, he's a veteran. He's a veteran. I got you. But he's 25 years old. Okay. He's not a 28-year-old vet. He's not a Joe Tooney at 32 years old, right? So he's still making mistakes, and maybe he'll never get over the mistakes. Maybe he'll never be that player that won't commit penalties, right? That could be the case. But if you go out and draft a replacement for Rasheed Walker, guess what? You just got younger again, and you could expect mental mistakes and penalties and so on and so forth, right? We're going to talk about his potential replacement here in just a second, right? And I think he's already on the roster, or at least we have a placeholder unless something else great falls right in our lap, right? So again, Rasheed Walker graded out 59th. Let's talk about the contract or the calculated market value. How did Spot Track come up with that number? So what they do is they take comparable players in terms of contract length and structure, okay, the value of the contract, and then they go off of stats, important stats for each individual position. So the 4 comp players for Rasheed Walker is Dan Moore, Jordan Mailata, Orlando Brown Jr., and Alaric Jackson, okay? Now, what are they comparing here? What they're comparing is length of the contracts, okay, value of the contract, and the age when signed. So this is kind of taken, all right, Rasheed Walker's hitting free agency around the same age as these guys, like Dan Moore, 26, Mailata, 27, Orlando Brown, 26, Alaric Jackson, 26. So they come up with base averages, okay? So what you've got is the average of all four of those players is 4 years, 67 million, or a 19.3 average annual value. Now, let's talk about performance. That base calculated value comes to 5 years, 96 million, or 19.3 average. Let's talk about statistical comparisons. It says now we'll compare our variables and Walker statistically over the 2 seasons prior to their signing. In this case, we're analyzing game played percentage, availability, snap percentage, how many snaps they're actually playing, quarterback hurries allowed per game, so allowing quarterback pressure, quarterback sacks allowed per game, rating. Okay. Now, with that being said, you notice there's no run stats there, right? No run blocking stats. You may disagree with that. And I kind of do too, right? Like, okay, we're just not going to value run blocking at all. Well, here's the thing. The league places way more value on pass protection because it's a passing league than they do run blocking. That's just the reality of the situation. This is why we say he may get more money on the market than what we're willing to pay. So when you talk about the players, same players compared, Dan Moore, Jordan Mailata, Orlando Brown Jr., Alaric Jackson. I'm not going to break down all the numbers. Let's just go with Dan Moore, okay? For example, Dan Moore played 97% playing time, 93.8% of the snaps. He allowed 1.97 quarterback hurries allowed per game. He allowed 0.61 sacks allowed per game, and his rating comes out to a 59.4. Jordan Mailata, a little bit better, okay? Quite a bit better, actually. 97 play percentage, 93 snap percentage, quarterback hurries, 2.1 looks bad, but look at the sacks allowed, only 0.27. I think Mailata is with Philly. If that's the case, Jalen Hurts probably helped keep those sack numbers down, therefore making him some money because you don't have as many sacks allowed, right? So his rating is an 80.3 compared to Dan Moore's 59. Now, you got Orlando Brown, Alaric Jackson, all that. You take those players. Here's the average you come up with, okay? You've got 94.1% game played. Snaps are 93%. Quarterbacks hurried 1.8. Quarterback sacks allowed 0.32. And rating comes out to 71.8. So let's look at Rasheed Walker and how he played. And again, this is strictly in the pass blocking game, which is what teams look at the most when it comes to signing a left tackle. His game play percentage was 97%. That's a percentage change of a positive 3.1. Okay, so he's better than those four players in games played. Snap percentage, a 96.5. That is a 3.6% or point positive for Rasheed Walker. So he's been available. Games played, snaps percentage. Quarterback hurries allowed, he's at 1.7. Guys, that is lower than the average of those other four players at a 1.8. The sacks allowed per game, the average of the other four players, 0.32. Rasheed Walker was better at 0.24. So what you essentially have is a rating of 66.4, which the average was 71. So the percentage change is actually a little bit lesser value than all four of those players combined at a minus 7.53. The median prime percentage change is a 3.69. The average prime percentage change is a 6.58. Therefore, the calculated market value for Rasheed Walker is 4 years, 81.4 million, or 20.3 average annual value. Whether we think he's worth it or not, that's how teams look at this. That's how they're going to attack this. Now, the Packers are going to look at this and they're going to go to him and say to his agent, if they do want him back, and I don't know if they do, all right, I don't have any inside information there, but if they do want it back, they're going to go to him and say, hey, you know, we want you back at this price, and here's why. And they're going to talk about the negatives because they want to get him as low as they can. When he hits free agency, if he gets more than one team that's pursuing him, guess what they're going to do? The opposite. It's essentially, you remember I used the real estate example, right? When you're selling a house, if you've only got one buyer, they got you by the you know what. But if you get 3 or 4 potential buyers that want the house, guess what happens now? They start outbidding each other, right? So all it takes is 2 teams to show decent interest in Rasheed Walker. He's probably going to get that $20.3 million average annual value. We may look up and he gets $28 million, $32 million, right? Now, the game is shifting a little bit more toward the run. You'll see, you know, the running game getting a little bit more involved. I don't think it will affect the market, but maybe there's a chance he goes out there and he only gets 15 million per. Maybe he goes out there and he ends up getting 10 million, right? Maybe that's the case. Like, think of Josh Myers last year. The market value on Josh Myers, I want to say it was like $5 or $6 million. I could be wrong. And I remember thinking, man, if we could get him for like 2 or 3 million per, I'd bring Josh Myers back, right? And because the market value is suggested and everything. He hits the open market. He got a 1 year, basically a minimum contract. I want to say it was a little less than $2 million. I would have brung Josh Myers back for that. But he's looking at it like, all right, the Packers didn't want me. I don't want to be here. I'm cutting ties. I'm moving on, right? There's some of that goes on as well. So just something to keep in mind there. Packer Doug in the chat says, should have kept Myers. Hindsight being 2020, Doug, like what I just said, right? If they went to Josh Myers and said, hey, we want you back, but at a minimum, and he hasn't hit free agency yet, and he's like, you know what, screw them. And he tells his agent, man, screw them. I'm hitting the market. I can get more money than that. Then he gets to the market, right? And all of a sudden the market ain't there. Is he going to go back to the team that he just said, screw them? Probably not, right? You just kind of cut your loss and move on. That's where ego can get in the way. I'm with you. I would have kept Josh Myers at that price. I just don't know if the Packers had a realistic shot of bringing him back at that price, right? And again, I wasn't a big Myers fan. I don't think he's a good football player. I want to be clear here. I don't think he's a horrible football player, but he definitely wasn't worth the draft pick we used, and he definitely wasn't worth what the market value was saying he was worth going into the offseason, if that makes sense. So, this is interesting here. Not So Cool said we should have kept Yosh Nijman too. I actually noticed the other day Yosh came in off the bench. Now I don't know what I think he got a lot more money. Cool. I'm not sure. You guys do the math there and check that. But I want to say he got a decent contract. I wasn't willing to pay that. And again, he ended up being a backup in Carolina. I remember him coming in because a tackle got hurt on one of those final drives there in their playoff game. So let's talk about Rasheed Walker's potential replacement. All right. Jordan Morgan. People are going, what are you talking about, Clayton? Hear me out here, okay, guys? They've got him listed as a guard on PFF. He played the majority of his snaps at guard. We've been very vocal this year. Why the hell are we playing a tackle at guard? I understand trying it coming out of college. I get it. Like, hey, if you could play him at guard, get your best 5 out there. But at some point, you got to recognize, okay, he's just bad. This ain't working, right? Now, we were kind of forced to play him at guard because obviously Elgton Jenkins goes down. Now, Sean Ryan has to go from right guard to center. So now it's Jordan Morgan is definitely they were rotating a little bit last year and a little bit into this year, if I remember correctly. But you look at his ranking, he's the 42nd highest graded guard. Well, in overall PFF grade. If we go back up here, keep in mind Rasheed Walker was 59th best tackle. Now we're comparing apples to oranges here, right? Because we're talking guard and tackle. I'm just simply saying Jordan Morgan was actually ranked higher at his respective position than Rasheed Walker was, right? His pass blocking grade, 68.8. That was 24th best in the league at the guard position. 58.9 run blocking grade. That was 49th best, okay? So again, those aren't great numbers, jump off the page numbers. However, we get to see him at tackle. Now, this all started with me in the preseason. You guys remember in the preseason, I was pretty vocal about this. I pulled the receipts. If anybody says, oh, you didn't say that, Clayton. August 17th, 2025, I put a tweet out, and I said, Jordan Morgan off to a great start at left tackle for the Packers. His PFF grades in preseason week 1 and 2, 76.5 at left tackle, and then 74.6 at left tackle in week 2 against Indianapolis. So his preseason PFF grade ended up being an 80.1. That's a lot better than Rasheed Walker's, right? Now, it's preseason. You're not going up against the best of the best, so you have to take that into consideration. I was just simply pointing out, based off what we've seen at left tackle, this dude's a left tackle. That's what he is. Why are we surprised? He was a left tackle all through high school. He was a left tackle all through college. That's his position. This is where I have a problem with one of the coaches, and I think we need to make a move because that was close. This poopy is getting ridiculous. You took a guy who probably would have been a better left tackle than your 7th-round pick that you don't plan on re-signing, and you played him out of position rather than just letting him play left tackle. Remember the camp battle that was going on? And people were saying, this really isn't a camp battle. This really isn't a camp battle. They started leaning into it a little bit, and then they had to steer away from it. Why? Injuries. That's a factor too. So I don't want to throw the coaches completely under the bus, but I think it's time for a new offensive line coach. Appreciate your service, Coach Buckus. I'm ready to move on. What I would like to see happen is, and I think this is maybe what the Packers are doing with Matt, is like, hey, we need to make some changes. We got to do it quick. They're now dragging their feet in the contract negotiation with Matt LaFleur. And I know I sound a little irritated. It's because I am. Here's what's going to happen if they drag their feet too long, if Ed Policy drags his feet too long. They're going to drag this out with Matt LaFleur. We don't even know if he's coming back, and now we can't make the coaching changes and this and that and everything else, right? I would bring Matt LaFleur back, and the majority of the fan base agrees with me. We've done the poll questions over and over and over. So if you disagree, it's cool. We can agree to disagree. Don't try to make me seem like I'm an idiot when the majority of the fan base believes we should bring him back. Aaron Rodgers said we'd be crazy to not bring Matt LaFleur back. Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft, Micah Parsons, Josh Jacobs all said, yes, Matt LaFleur needs to be back. Micah Parsons actually said he's one of the reasons I came here, and now we're going to fire him. Like, that's essentially what he's saying. Get that damn deal done. Stop trying to skim on paying coaches and assistants. Get the deal done. Make the move. Bring in Mike McDaniel for an offensive coordinator job interview. If he doesn't get a head coaching job, you pay Mike McDaniel more than anybody else is willing to pay him. That's your new offensive coordinator. You tell Steno you're going back to O-line coach. Buckus, good luck to you. And listen, if Steno's got a problem with being demoted to offensive line coach, sorry, bub, go find another job. That's how I would approach that. That to me gives us the best chance. Mike McDaniel's specialty is the running game. Okay, it's the running game. He can be the run game coordinator, put all his energy, effort, and resources into revamping our running game. It don't have to go from 22nd to second in the league. Take it from 22nd to 15th, right? Get the running game on track. Steno, our offensive line was great when you were the offensive line coach. Go back to doing what you do great. That's what I would do. That's how I would approach it. So I'm just a dumb redneck fan, though. What the hell do I know? Jordan Morgan. Now, you're going Clayton. We're going to do all this because he had 2 good preseason games. Check this out. I said, to me, this decision is easy, but I want to get everybody's opinion on Twitter. I said, just comment on it. Jordan Morgan looked really good in the preseason at left tackle, as we said back in August. He finished the regular season at tackle. This is left tackle and right tackle, okay? Offensive PFF grade was 74.9. Run blocking grade 75.2. He became a good run blocking tackle. What do we need more of? Why did our running game struggle? Because Rasheed Walker is one of a few, not the only one, not trying to throw him under the bus, that's not a good run blocker. That will help fix the running game as well. His pass blocking grade, 66.9. Need to work on it a little bit, but I think he'll be fine there because he's going to settle back into his natural position. Another reason to do that, Rasheed Walker might warrant $20 million per. That'll be out of our market. Let's say the market is overinflated there in terms of his numbers and calculations. And let's say we have to pay him $12 million. Hell, let's say nobody's interested in Rasheed Walker and we can get him for $10 million. Okay. If we pay him $10 million average annual value, look at the cap number on Jordan Morgan for the next 2 years. He's only 25 years old this year, $3.8 million against the cap. 2027, $4.5 million against the cap. Okay. I'm okay with spending a ton of money on left tackle because it's a tier 1 position of importance, but you're in a unique situation where you're going to be able to upgrade the position, not pay extra money for it for the time being. And if Jordan Morgan takes another step and you go, damn, he's a dominant tackle, he's going to get top tackle money. He's a first round pick. You got the club option where you can bring him back in 2027 for a club option, much like we're doing with Devontae Wyatt. You can move that money around because it's fully guaranteed, cash over cap, i.e., that's how I would approach this. He may play like he is right now and not be worth a contract extension. In the meantime, guess what you're doing in the draft? Guess what you're doing in free agency? You're still trying to find that tackle. And that's what I said right here. Rasheed Walker's calculated market value is around $20 million average annual value. Jordan Morgan's cap over the next 2 years, 3.8, 4.5. Also, this does not mean, hear me clear, guys. I don't want this to get misconstrued. This does not mean you do not try to find a better option this offseason. It simply means Morgan is a better choice than Walker. There may be a stud that falls to you in the second round and you go, damn, we need O-line help. Let's get him. Put him in camp. He's way better than Jordan Morgan. That's our starting left tackle. Awesome. Think about this. If you move on from Elgton Jenkins, you free up $20 million. Okay. $20 million, bang. Now all of a sudden you're 15 under the cap. Okay. You move Zach Tom to center. You kick Jordan Morgan back over to tackle. Keep in mind, these right here our tackle grades. That includes right tackle, playing right tackle, right? It's mostly right tackle, as a matter of fact. If you have a stud fall to you in the draft, you put him at left tackle, Jordan Morgan at right tackle, Zach Tom at center. Now you've got a Hall of Fame caliber center in Zach Tom, and you continue to build the interior out as well. You got to make a decision on Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks is real simple, $24.8 million against the cap, only $4 million in savings though. So you can cut him outright, free up $4 million in cap space. I'm to the point where, based off what we've seen this year, I don't think Aaron Banks is a starting caliber guard. I just don't. Maybe it's our system, although we watched all the tape of him playing in a similar system with Shanahan in San Francisco. That's just where I'm at with it. So again, that's how I see the whole left tackle situation. I'm curious to know what you guys think in the chat. Let us know, how do you feel about Rasheed Walker, that $20 million cap hit? What do you think of my plan to bring in Jordan Morgan at left tackle and move forward that way and continue to look for the next great tackle, because it's that important of a position? Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified whenever we go live in the future. Let's see what the chat's saying real quick. I don't want to neglect you guys too bad here. Let's see. Timothy in the chat says Belton is physically a better left tackle. Starting Morgan there is a mistake. Have you seen Anthony Belton's grades? No disrespect, hey, Timothy. We can agree to disagree. Anthony Belton's PFF grades ended up being the 40s. And when we seen him at tackle early on, it looked bad. Now, I'm hearing former offensive linemen say they like the way he looked. I don't know as much about playing offensive line as former NFL offensive linemen, but I respectfully disagree based off what I've seen on the tape. When you look at Jordan Morgan and you look at Anthony Belton, now I think Anthony Belton is more of a guard than he is a tackle. He played left tackle in college, but to me, he looks a little more comfortable at guard than he does tackle in the National Football League. That's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but appreciate the comments there, man. Let's see here. Coach Lynn, can Walker play right tackle? We've never seen it, right, Coach? So it's kind of a, if we went that route, you got to overpay him and to not have the information on whether or not he can play right tackle. I don't remember many if any during camp where they said, all right, they're trying Walker at right tackle now. Maybe they did it, but obviously if they did it, they moved away from it pretty quick, right? This is interesting. Coach Lynn says, I want Zach Tom at left tackle. That makes a lot of sense, Coach. A lot of sense. You put him at left tackle, and now the most important position is shored up, right? You could put Jordan Morgan at right tackle. Didn't think about that, Coach. I don't hate that, You'd have to see it in camp, and we're not going to see it, the important stuff, right? But you being a coach, you know that. See how they perform in practice, have them both compete at left tackle and right tackle, that type of thing. I don't think that's a bad move. My biggest concern is center. And I've already got a couple prospects I really like in the draft. I know it's way early, but you guys will get all that draft coverage in our Patreon group as well as we move forward through the offseason. So that's interesting, Coach. I like it, man. That's very, very interesting. So, we'll continue to monitor that. Again, appreciate everybody giving your opinion there. Let's move on to Romeo Doubs. This one was interesting, guys. Going into the offseason, like going into the playoffs, I should say. I'm saying Romeo Doubs is gone. Like, yeah, man, he's going to be priced out of our market. And if that's the case, the roster model has already been set, right? Like you gave Christian Watson a little bridge contract, right? And I think we all agree we want Christian Watson in the long term, man. He was dominant this year. He was a great football player. Matthew Golden, we've seen what he can do in the playoffs, right? I feel like Matthew Golden is best suited to take Romeo's spot as the boundary X. And he can still play some field Z and all that, right? I think moving forward, if you're going to move on without Romeo Doubs, it should be Matthew Golden, the boundary X, okay? Christian Watson, the Z, Jaden Reed in the F. And then, of course, you got, a couple backups, Dontavion Wicks, who can play F. He can play Z. I feel like he's more of an X, but I feel like they played him at F and Z more than anything. And then, of course, you've got Savion Williams, who I think is going to emerge as a good football player. He's just bit by the injury bug, right? We got to get him healthy. Got to get that straightened out. So, with that being said, let's talk Romeo Doubs. Let's talk about PFF grade first. And we got a bunch of production stats in here as well. This really surprised the heck out of me, guys. So Romeo Doubs finished the season the 34th highest graded wide receiver in the league. Everybody tell me in the chat right now, for someone who graded out as one of the best number 2 receivers in the league, okay, meaning he would be the second best receiver on an NFL roster, what would you pay him average annual value? Let me know in the chat as quick as possible. Just put the numbers up, okay? Just put the numbers, 10 million, 7 million, 20 million. What would you be willing to pay Romeo Doubs per year, okay? And again, keeping in mind, he's the 34th highest rated wide receiver. I'm going to try to mark these in the chat as we go and not have too much dead time. I want to know what you guys think, okay? So put them in as quick as possible. Receiving grade, 77.3. That was actually 28th best, okay? Moving along. What's his calculated market value? $12 million. All right, you guys got your numbers in quick. That's great. Chris said 15. All right, got it, Chris. Tatted like a fool, probably related to me. He said 10. All right, 10 million. Got it. Cheo, I hope I'm saying that name right, Bub. $15 million, he says. Holmes says 12 million. All right. Andy Doubs says 17. Cheesehead Murph, what up, Murph? He said 12. Got it. Okay. So you got as high as 17, as low as 10, right? There you go. Thank you, Cheo. Thank you for the confirmation. Somewhere between 10 and 17 million, right? Calculated market value sitting at 12 million. Here are the comp players. I'm not going to go through all the numbers again. Like I said, it kills a lot of time, and I know you guys don't tune in the podcast just to hear me read numbers. You know, want us talking ball, and I get it. Christian Kirk, Alan Lazard, that's a blast from the past. Gabriel Davis, KJ Osborne. Okay, the averages for those 4 players: 3 years, 39.7 million, average salary of 11.5 million, and the age when they signed their contract was 25.5 million. Okay, the base calculated value is 4 years, 50 million, or 12.5 million per. Let's talk about the statistical comparisons. Okay. Again, game played percentage, receiving targets per game. Okay. Receptions per game, receiving yards per game, receiving touchdowns per game, yak per game, drops per game. So they got a little negative in there. I really like that. And then the overall rating of those 4 players, their averages come out to 94% game played, targets 5.4 per game, receptions per game 3.3, yards per game 45.1, receiving touchdowns per game 0.38, yak per game 13.4, drops per game 0.26 for a rating of 65.08. So you see the age comps, contract comps, statistical comps. Here's what Romeo Doubs had. Game play percentage was significantly lower, only 85%. Now, game play percentage, that sometimes, not this year necessarily, but that sometimes includes a suspension. It's mostly injuries, right? You can't make the club in the tub. The best ability is availability and accountability, right? Those are the 2 most important abilities. Don't matter how talented you are. If you're not available, you're not accountable. I'm going to say it. Keyshawn Nixon, it is what it is, right? Yeah, I'm still pissed about that. So 85.2 game play percentage, okay? Targets per game, 5.41, the same exact as the average of those other players. Pretty wild, right? Receptions per game, 3.4. Receiving yards per game, 45.6. Receiving touchdowns, 0.34, okay? Yak per game, 10.5. Drops per game, 0.28. Rating, 70.5. So essentially what you've got is a game played percentage change of minus 9.3 for availability. Targets per game is flush. Receptions per game, 2.6 in the positive. Okay. Receiving yards per game, 1.2. So a little bit better. Receiving touchdowns per game, minus 10.5. So it's the lack of tutties that's hurting Romeo here. Yak per game, he's not a big yak guy, right? Minus 21.5. So he's not a yak guy. He's more of a possession catch. He doesn't drop very much, right? It says drops per game here at a 0.28 is actually a minus 7.2, 7.69 from others. Isn't it crazy? We're watching the Packers. We think Romeo Doubs has the best hands on the team. Oh, he's got great hands. He's got great hands. When you look at these other comp players, it's a little bit worse, right? So the rating is a positive 8.33 change, okay, for Romeo Doubs. With that being said, the median prime percentage change, minus 3.8, average prime percentage change, minus 4.6 is where we're sitting at. So the calculated market value for Romeo Doubs, 4 years, 48 million or 12 million per. You guys are spot on. 10 to 17 million. I could see a team paying him 17 million. I could also see a team not being willing to pay him 12 million, right? So I feel like you guys were really, really spot on there with your assessment. Now, here's where I get a little bit, again, PFF isn't everything. Spot Track isn't everything. They get this stuff wrong all the time, right? When I went and looked at the statistics and the important statistics to me, let's talk about this, because I think I'd be willing to pay him the 12 million per. Originally, I was going, nah, man, it's been fun and all, but if we could get him for 5 or 6 million, I'd like to have him back. Check this out, guys. Receiving EPA in the entire National Football League, when you remove the minimal snap guys, right? Romeo Doubs finished 19th best in receiving EPA at plus 27.6. It's a very, very important metric. Kind of takes everything comparable to the situation they're put in, right? And throughout however many years in the league, and here's how much better they did over the expected points added. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a really cool metric. I'm not saying it's everything either, but this is one of the most important metrics. EPA per dropback for quarterbacks, receiving EPA for wide receivers, positive 27.6 for Rome. Okay. Catch rate over expected, 13th. So we just showed his drop percentage dropping his value down. But when you actually look at the catch rate over expected, meaning, again, every site's different. PFF's going to be different from ESPN, from whoever you're getting your stats from. But I love the catch rate over expected because it takes into consideration all the different variables, right? Well, the reality is his his catch rate over expected was a positive 7.2%. That's 13th best in the league. This would suggest that he's top 20 in hands in the league, is what that's saying. All right. Average separation. Here's where he's not great. And I didn't even tally up Yak because I don't see Yak as important, especially for a Boundary X player. Separation, 71st in the league. So that's how much separation does he create, right? Now, you can look at that one of two ways, and it's why I don't put as much stock in that stat as the other two prior ones, is the reason being, if Jordan is going to Romeo in crucial situations, whether he's covered or not, it's been proven Romeo's kind of his favorite target, right? That would explain why his average separation is down. Now, one thing's for sure, he's not a good separator, right? Now, maybe he creates separation in the route, but then the defender is able to close on him because he's not an athletic freak, right? He's not a Christian Watson. He's not a Matthew Golden. That makes sense too. Nonetheless, it is what it is, 71st in the league in average separation. This is one of my favorite stats, yards per route ran, okay? This is basically what it's saying is whether he gets the ball or not, when Romeo Doubs is on the field and he runs a route, this is how many yards is average when he runs a route. It's a positive 1.86. That's 24th best in the league. So when you're looking at 4 or 5 of the key statistics here across the board, right, you're essentially saying Romeo Doubs is a number 1 receiver. Isn't that wild? Now, number 1, when you hear number 1, you're probably thinking Randy Moss. You're probably thinking Terrell Owens. You're probably thinking, I'm trying to think of somebody here in today, Puka Nacua, right, who's just absolutely blown up in the league. You're thinking Devontae Adams in his prime. I don't see a number 1 receiver as that, okay? Those type of receivers I see as elite. They are field tilters. They are, damn, we better run bracket coverage on them. They are week in and week out, no matter who their opponent is, they stamp them as a Tuesday player. And if you guys don't know what a Tuesday player is, that's a Belichickian term that came from Bill Walsh. The coaches meet on Tuesday and formulate the game plan. And when they formulate the game plan, they got what they call Tuesday players. What are the players on the other team that we have to stop no matter what? They are the ones that are the game wreckers, okay? Romeo Doubs is not that. So when people say, we finally got us a number 1 receiver, I think what they're saying is we got us an elite receiver, right? I don't see a number 1 as that. A number 1 to me is the best receiver on the team. And the reality is when you look at the important statistics here, okay, and you kind of throw it all into a pot, there's a case to be made that Romeo Doubs could be the best receiver on the, you know, one of the top 32 teams, right? It may be 31st ranked team. It may be the 32nd ranked team, but he kind of averages out that, hey, he's a borderline number 1 receiver in that regard. That's why you want to pay him like he's a number 2 receiver, because again, To me, he's not great. I think he's in the very good column based off how he played this year. And you tip your cap to Romeo, you just made yourself some money, bud. It might not be in Green Bay, but you just made yourself some money. Well, what's he do in the big games, Clayton? Did you just see what he did against Chicago? He was our best receiver. He kept us in that game. As much as I've had to hear about the damn substitute teacher from my wife, she also mentioned Romeo. Like, how do you not re-sign Romeo after what he just did on the biggest stage? Like, she giving me heck about that, and I'm a penny pincher. That's why she goes to Disney World 6 times a year, and I'm staying here at Tennessee. So, with that being said, what do you guys think about those numbers? How do you feel about bringing Romeo Doubs back? And what number? You guys kind of said your number, right? Somewhere between 10 and 17 million. I think I'm okay with 12 million. Let's talk about the problem, though. The problem is the roster model. When you look at the receiver room, what was the biggest complaint that Packer fans had this year, guys? I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Please excuse me. I apologize. It is ice cold now. I did not expect to go 55 minutes, but here we are. What is the biggest complaint from fans about this wide receiver room and Matt LaFleur and his offense? You didn't use Matthew Golden enough, right? If you re-sign Romeo Doubs, that boom, Holmes hit it. You got it, man, right off the bat. Golden targets. If you re-sign Romeo Doubs, that is what Bill Parcells used to refer to as a progress stopper. He is going to slow the progress of Matthew Golden. Now, when you model it out, next year's cap, Christian Watson's under contract for $6.9 million against the cap. Now, we're going to give him an extension, hopefully. So you got to plan on that number going up significantly. Christian Watson about to get the bag, okay? Matthew Golden's under contract for the next 3 years. His cap hit this year, $3.9 million. Jaden Reed under contract for 2 more years, this year and next year, right? Got to make a decision on him soon, too. $2.2 million for Jaden Reed. Savion Williams, 1.4. Wicks, 1.2. He'll be gone after that. Jacoby Keeney-James, $1 million. And then Will Shepard doesn't count toward the cap. He's not in the top 51, which is the NFL rule. So, with that being said, here's what the question really becomes, guys. Think about this. Do you want to re-sign Romeo Doubs, or would you rather re-sign Jaden Reed in 2 years? If you had to choose between Doubs and Reed, who would it be? Now, wounds are fresh. I know the majority of the people are probably going to say, look how Romeo played against Chicago, and remember the crucial drop that Jaden Reed had. Now, Jaden Reed, I loved his response to that, by the way. They said he even tweeted about it. He apologized to Packer fans like, damn, my bad on that drop. Now, me and Tim talked about this, and this might make some people mad, and we're making excuses for Jaden Reed. When you look at that throw from Jordan and you see Jordan react like, God, I wanted that. I don't think Jordan was reacting to, I can't believe Reed dropped that pass. As Reed's running that route full speed, and he's got a guy in his hip pocket, right? He's preparing to catch the ball here. The ball's kind of here. That's kind of a tough on a heater. That was a heater from Jordan Love, one of the strongest arm quarterbacks in the league. As he turns, that becomes a little bit more of a difficult catch. I think Jordan was thinking, I just missed him. And Jaden Reed's going, I should have caught that ball. It hit me in the hands. I love both of those responses, right? That's awesome. You want your quarterback to take accountability. You want your receiver to take accountability. But who would you rather have, Romeo Doubs or Jaden Reed? I removed the emotion of the last game, and I think in terms of deployment, okay, if you keep Romeo Doubs over Jaden Reed, that means you got to put Matthew Golden in the F. The question becomes, is that a big enough positive gain for not having Matthew Golden at the X? That's where you're slowing that progress down with Matthew Golden not playing what I think would be best at the X position and having Jaden Reed at the F. Also, you need to save some cap at some point. You can't overpay everybody, right? This is the better model, is pay Christian Watson, let Romeo walk, right? So to me, what I think will probably happen, and it looks like people are saying Reed in here. Let's see here. Mike says, yeah, Reed into in a heartbeat. Got it. Okay, yeah. And Coach Lynn says it's a good question. It is, man. It's a tough question because I love Romeo Doubs too, right? Now, here's where the Packers have to make a decision. They may go to Romeo Doubs knowing this, that, hey, if Rome don't re-sign with us, we're in good shape. It ain't a big deal because we got our roster modeled out, and they'll probably draft another receiver soon. And also, you want to get Savion on the field a little bit, right? So they'll probably look at it like, okay, we can afford to lose Romeo Doubs because we got Matthew Golden to play the X, Christian to play the Z, Jaden Reed to play the F. Wicks will be a backup. Savion will be a backup, right? So you kind of feel like you're in good shape there. Plus, we're pressing into 12 personnel a little bit more. We still run 11, 3 wide receiver sets most, but we're pressing into 12 a little bit more. And on the flip side, you're getting Tucker Kraft back. You want to have Tucker Kraft on the field as much as possible, right? Maybe that means more 12 personnel sets. That something else we didn't take into consideration. The running game probably struggled a little bit too without having Tucker Kraft run blocking. He improved his run blocking significantly. Anyway, I think that gives the Packers enough confidence to go into Rome and go, how about this, man? How about we give you 3 years, $24 million total. He's going to go $8 million average. I should be able to get 10 to 12 on the market. No, I want 10 to 12. Are you going to get as much guaranteed money? What if they told Romeo, we'll give you 3 years, $24 million, and let's guarantee, let's say a team is willing to give him 3 years, $30 million with $15 million guaranteed, and we offered him 3 years, $24 million with, with let's say $18 million guaranteed, a little bit more guaranteed money. You don't have to pack up your family and move across the country, right? You can stay rooted in Green Bay. A 3-year deal that's really a 2-year deal. We can get out of it after 2 years, and Jaden Reed comes up for contract. Bang. In 2 years, we can cut Romeo Doubs, and it'd be a similar situation to like a Rashan Gary, where it's 28 on the cap, but it's $11 million in savings if you move on. You give Reed the extension. You keep Romeo for 2 years, and you kind of bring your whole receiver room back. Now, will he do that? You better be willing to give him a little bit more guaranteed money to keep the overall number down. That's going to be the big talking point, right? So what do you guys think about that? Let us know how you feel in that. So I love the fact that Bears fans hop in here. And your team's moving on to the divisional round, and you're combing through YouTube looking for Packer channels. It's absolutely hilarious. It's the most miserable fan base, man. It's just, I will never understand that. It's wild. Appreciate the view, appreciate the click. It helps the channel, but man, that's such strange behavior. So anyway, it's going to be fun watching them play the Rams this week. I know that. What do you guys think about that whole situation, man? How do you guys feel about everything we just talked about, okay? How do you feel about Romeo Doubs? Want to hear from you in the comments. You're watching this back later. What's the number you would put on Romeo Doubs' average annual value, right? And it's not a trick question. I just kind of throw another layer out there in terms of, how you can guarantee a little bit more money and keep the overall number down. And plus, you could tack on voidable years. That's the other thing you can do as well. Now, there's no reason to think you should do that at this point. We got to make these other decisions on the potential cuts. But let us know in the comments what you think there. The final thing I want to say here, Romeo Doubs' market value is projected at $12 million average annual value. His 2025 rankings per PFF 34th, EPA 19th, catch rate over expected 13th, average separation 71st, yards per route ran 24th. If, and that is a huge if, you can sign Romeo Doubs to a 1-for-3 deal at $12 million per, I would do it. If his market blows up, thank you for everything, Rome. Go get your money, big dog. That 1-for-3, meaning more like the Aaron Banks contract, where it's like you signed a long-term deal, but you can get out of it if you want to, right? Like with Aaron Banks, remember everybody said it's a $77 million deal. Now he's 24.8 against the cap, and you can cut him and free up $4 million. Slate's clean. So you really only pay him $20 million this year, and the low cap number you had him at this year was really just a $27 million contract, essentially is what it ended up being. So with that being said, what do you guys think about all that? Sorry it went so long-winded, but it was fun hanging out in here with the chat. And let's get one final comment here. Actually, a couple of them. Ben Holden, I like Doubs, but I also want to see young wide receivers develop. That's the problem, right, Ben? That's very well said, man. I'm with you. I'm to the point where I'm okay if they bring Romeo back. And earlier in the year, you guys know, I was like, no, we can't do it. Just can't do it, man. Just ain't doing it. Man, he really turned it on at the end there, right? And injuries are going to happen too. If we come out, we decide to part ways with Rome, and we don't draft a receiver, and he doesn't end up being a stud because we didn't draft him, or even if we did draft one, they end up, oh, well, you know how it is with rookies. It takes time. Look what happened with Matthew Golden this year, right? and all of a sudden you're banged up and you're down to 2 receivers. Now we're trying to press into 12 a little more than we need to, right? That comes into play as well. So Holmes says, I don't hate that, Clay. Not sure Rome will go for it. He's single with a girlfriend here, I believe. He feels comfortable here, in my opinion. I think I would do 36, 3 years, 15 up front. Okay, so you would go with the 12 average annual value, give him 15 million guaranteed. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, man. I'd be willing to pay 12 million. I'd be willing to pay what the market value is as it sits right now. But here's the problem. Another team, I mean, Christian Kirk got paid a ton of money a few years ago. You guys remember that? It was like, damn, he got paid. Does anybody see Christian Kirk as a dominant receiver? He might be a good receiver. I haven't followed him too close, but we don't look at him as an upper echelon, right? There may be a team that's willing to give Romeo 20 million per. I hope they do. From a selfish standpoint, I'd like him back on Green Bay on a minimum contract. But for Rome's sake, it'd be cool to see him go out there and get the bag, man. That's going to be absolutely awesome. So, yeah. And this is a great point here. Not So Cool says Doubs as a 4th rounder was a great pick. He will be missed. That's a great point. Another great pick. I've been critical of Goody, right? But again, you got to call a spade a spade. Zach Tom, 4th round pick, stud. Romeo Doubs, great value in the 4th. Hell, Rasheed Walker in the 7th round at left tackle is good value, right? It's just you got to take that next step. We're in year 2 of a 3-year Super Bowl championship window, right? Got to crank everything up. So, and then Reef said, yeah, Doubs is developing. He really is, right? We look at these players. They've been in the league for 10 games, and we're like, well, they ain't performing, man. It takes time. It takes time to develop. It really does. So that's it, guys. That's all I got. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. This was a lot of fun. We're going to be back later today. Any news that breaks, we had locker clean out yesterday. We're waiting on Matt LaFleur news. As soon as that drops, we'll go live as soon as that's ready to roll. But we're going to continue this in the Patreon group. Again, you guys can find all that information and organized by me and giving my take along the way in our Patreon group, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. This time of year, our Patreon is, I know it's going to blow up because the draft coverage is going to be very extensive, but that specific write-up that I put there, what we're going to do is just continue to add to that until we hit the limit, and then we'll do a part 2 if we need to. Maybe we can put all the information in one. But next on the list is going to be, like we talked about, Malik Willis and Quay Walker. That'll be the next 2 players we break down. So we'll continue that and just add it right to that. You guys have all that information, quick reference right there at your disposal over at patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Do me a big favor, hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon. Can't believe we got this many people watching in here on January 13th. I just love the off season, and this is the content's only going to crank up from here on out. We got so much to cover. It's not even funny. We're going to be hopping around because what's going to happen is the coaching carousel is going to get fired up big time. All those dominoes are going to fall into place. We'll bring you all that news. And then, of course, we're going to jump into the re-signing period. That'll happen fairly quick. The draft coverage is going to be interweaved with the free agency / re-signing and everything. I'm going to go ahead and start putting draft articles up. And, boys, I'm telling you, it's right around the corner. We're going to be doing mock drafts very, very soon. And somebody just got really excited in here because y'all been asking me for them during the season, and that just makes you guys insane. I want to say that, all right? So it's going to be awesome, man. We'll see you guys later this afternoon. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Hit that like button. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go, Pack, go.
Here we go. We're out.
Bye, guys.